All right, good morning, everyone. Welcome to Kabbalah Café. This is our weekly look at all things Kabbalistic. Today is the first Sunday in the month of Elul. The month of Elul is very special energy. It says that when Elul comes, there's a wind, there's a breeze, an Elul breeze that that everyone can sense and feel. And so I have in honor of the month, we have our trusty shofar, which historically, for those online, Zoom has blocked the shofar sound, thinking that it's some sort of annoying background noise. Yeah?
Sure.
You're thinking
Just 'cause it's Jewish.
Jewish, yeah. Well, you know what? It's also the Nike swoosh almost, right? Just Jew it. Could be that.
We were first.
Typically. So we'll do that at the end of the class. And I hope it's my first time sounding the shofar, in public. I hope I don't blow it. And there you go. All right, so my friends, we have a lot to discuss today. Today's topic is Honey, I Shrunk the Moon, which of course is the reference to the Rick Moranis movie, Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, just in case my references are a little bit too dated. All right, so here we go. So let's talk about the moon. So I want to begin with a piece of Talmud. We have another handout, and we're going to start with this text right away. Please take and pass down. And that will... Hold on, no, I'll give a few more to the man.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Keep one for you, yeah. All right, so here we go. Let me put this up for our online crew as well. This is going to be a lot of fun. It is a wild and crazy text. When I say crazy, I mean with all the respect in the world, and yet it requires a lot of explanation. So, here's what you need to know. The Talmud has a lot of interesting stories, and dare I say, sometimes bizarre stories. This is one of them. This is one of the stories that as a kid, I remember learning, you take it as obvious. The moon complained, and God said, boom, now you're smaller. Anything else to say? Right? That's kind of the story that you learn as a kid. And yet there's a lot to unpack, and what we're going to do is we're going to unpack the story based on the interpretation of the Maharal of Prague, Rabbi Yehuda Loew, who was a mystic, who created the Golem, with Sefer Yetzirah, with the book of Kabbalah, the original book of Kabbalah. And so he gives a Kabbalistic interpretation of this Talmudic story, which is cool to see a bit of a hybrid Talmud Kabbalah workshop, because you pretty much silo these things. Well, Talmud is Talmud, and Kabbalah is Kabbalah, and near the twain shall meet. Never the twain shall meet. And yet, today, the goal is to combine them. Just so you know, Kabbalah, real Kabbalah, genuine Kabbalah, is not just another layer or another area of Torah study, but it's the core of Torah, meaning it's going to shed light on all the layers of Torah interpretation. It'll explain biblical stories. It will explain the core of a mitzvah. It'll explain God and the whole relationship we have with God and purpose. And so it's not like a siloed area of study. Oh, you could study Talmud, you could study Halacha, you could study this, you could study Hebrew, you could study Kabbalah. No, Kabbalah is really the core of all that there is. That's why we start off our week with some Kabbalah study, because how could you start a week without getting to the core? So, with that in mind, let us begin with a Talmudic passage. I'm going to read. Sit back, relax, and enjoy the story. Honey, I Shrunk the Moon. Rabbi Shimon ben Pazi raises a contradiction between two verses. The truth is, it's not between two verses. It's between two parts of the very same verse. It is written, and God made the two great lights. And it is also written in the same verse, the greater light to rule the day, and the lesser light to rule the night, indicating that only one was great. So let me break this down. Hopefully it's self-understood, but just in case, I'm going to clarify this. The beginning of the verse says that God created the two ma'orot hagdolot, I believe it is. The two great lights. And then it says, Et ha'ma'or hagadol l'memshelat hayom, ve'et ha'ma'or hakatan l'memshelat halayla. The great luminary to rule by day, and the minor, the lesser, the smaller luminary to rule at night. Anyone with a thinking mind asks the question. You just told me there were two great luminaries. Then how do you segue as if like you're gaslighting us? Two great luminaries, the great one by day and the small one at night. You just said two great luminaries. What happened to the two great luminaries? Rabbi Shimon Pazi explains. And here's the background story. And yes, we're about to get into talking moons and hurt feelings. But that's where this goes. When God first created the sun and the moon, they were equally bright. Then the moon said before the Holy One, blessed be He, Master of the universe, is it possible for two kings to serve with one crown? One of us must be subservient to the other. God therefore said to her, if so, go and diminish yourself. She said before him, Master of the universe, since I said a correct observation before you, must I diminish myself? 1 second, let's pause here for a moment. You know, in, 2026, more 2026 things, there are whistleblower laws. Like, if you speak up and you call out some sort of injustice or whatever, there's protections that you shouldn't be fired for speaking truth to power. And so what's happening here? Now you might say, well, this is, 5,786, almost 7 years ago. Good luck suing God. But that's kind of what's going on here. Look what happens. The moon says, hey, this doesn't make sense. Two kings sharing the same crown. To quote the old westerns with a tumbleweed blowing in the background, this town ain't big enough for the both of us. That sort of thing. So what's going on? Then God says, okay, so make yourself smaller. Go diminish yourself. So the moon has a tie in it back. The moon has a claim back. It's like, I said the truth and now I'm being punished. Let's continue. So here's, God tries several resolutions. God said to her, the moon, as compensation, go and rule both during the day, along with the sun, and during the night. Meaning, they'll be able to see you during the day and night. She said to him, what is the greatness of shining alongside the sun? What use is a candle in the middle of the day? What? No one's even going to see me. Yes, I'll be there in the sky, but no one's going to see my light or my reflection of light. You're never going to see anything. Okay, so God tries a second option to placate the moon. The moon is a real thorn in the side of God. It's like if you're a customer service agent and the guy's not getting off the phone. It's like, no, I demand a supervisor. It's like, okay, hold on. What if I give you day and night? No, it's not enough. All right, so God says, go let the Jewish people count the days and years with you, and this will be your greatness. Meaning, what does that mean? The calendar. You know what? I'll give you the Jewish calendar. How's that? How is that? I'll give you the calendar. Fine, so you're small. Fine, you're no longer a great luminary. Fine. But at least you get your name on the calendar. Yeah, all Jewish time will be revolving around you. You think that's going to work with the moon? Moon is a tricky customer. She said to him, but the Jewish people will count with the sun as well, as it is impossible that they will not count seasons with it. As it is written, and let them be for signs and for seasons and for days and for years. 1 second, let me explain this. Basically, the Jewish calendar, although it's lunar based, it's also solar driven, solar powered. Why do I say that? Because, every few years there's a Jewish leap year. This coming year is a Jewish leap year. And unlike the secular or Gregorian leap year, which adds 1 day to February, Judaism says, hold your day and I'll give you a month. We got another month. Adar. There's 2 months. There's the first Adar, and like what I like to call is the other Adar, which is Adar Beis, Adar 2. The adventure continues. You got a full month. There's, in fact, a very elaborate 19-year cycle of leap years and non-leap years in order to keep the lunar and the solar cycles justified, which means that every 19 years, your English birthday and your Hebrew birthday realign. It might be a day off because of some quirks in the system, but typically every 19 years. So when you're 19, when you're 38, etc. I've lost the math after that. 57, whatever it is, you have the alignment once again. So the moon says, you're telling me that the months are going to be aligned, that the calendar is going to be aligned with me. It's also aligned with the sun. By the way, the reason we do this is because the lunar year, 12 months of lunar cycles, comes out to 354 days. The lunar cycle is exactly 29 and a half days. 29.5 times 12, I'll make it easier for you, equals 354. Again, 29.5 times 12 is 354. If you notice, that is exactly 11 days shy of 365, which means that your lunar, if you have the same beginning point, and your solar year stretches 365 days, your lunar year is ending 11 days earlier. After 2 years, 22 days earlier. After 3 years, 33 days earlier. That means that if the first Passover, let's say original OG Passover, what happened on April 1st, let's just give it a day. The next year, after 3 years, it would now be March. And after 6 years, February. After 9 years, January. And now we're celebrating Passover in the winter. The problem is, now you might say, well, who cares? The Muslims do that. Ramadan is, keeps on changing seasons because they also go by the lunar year, and they don't have any problems with that. So why don't we just go lunar and that's it? Go lunar and go broke with lunar. That's it. Well, the answer is the Torah says that the holiday of Passover has to be b'chodesh Aviv, in the spring. So now we're stuck. If you go with a lunar cycle, then there's a slow creep earlier and earlier and earlier, and the seasonal calendar. So how do you ensure that Passover is always in the spring? The answer is you add another Adar before the month before Passover. Every 2 years or so, 2 to 3 years, you add another month right before Passover to push it out into the spring. When it starts creeping back, like it is this year, it's starting to creep earlier and earlier, boom, now you kick it out. Then it's going to be a little further. That's why it's a 19 year of push and pull until it realigns perfectly with that algorithm. The point of this is that the moon says, you're telling me that I get the calendar? The sun also gets the calendar. We have leap years, and that's to placate, or not to placate, that's to justify with the sun, with the solar cycle. So I don't get that. It's not exclusively me. Not good enough. Can I speak to your manager? Let's continue. God said to her, middle of that larger paragraph, God said to her, go, let righteous men be named after you. Just as you are called the lesser light Hakatan, there will be Yaakov Hakatan, Shmuel Hakatan, David Hakatan. There'll be Jacob the small, Shmuel the small, David the small. And who are these? Jacob, our forefather, Shmuel the Tana, King David. They were all called because of their humility, Katan, Hakatan. So he says, the moon, you're saying that it's not good to be small? It's good to be small. Small means humble. And humility is a trait. Some of the greatest people of all time will be called not by their greatness, but by their humility, which in turn is their greatness. So don't complain. It's a good thing. And you know what the moon said? It's the best you can do. Do a little plot twist. Oh, you're small, but that's actually great. Give me a break. Look at that sun. It's so beautiful. And look at me. Oh, but you at least you get to be humble. I signed up for humble. I signed up for be humble. God saw, this is how the Talmudic story ends. God saw that the moon was not comforted. The Holy One, blessed be He, said, you know what? As the kids would say, I don't know if they say it anymore, but at least in my day they would say, my bad. Bring atonement for me, since I diminished the moon. Yeah, made a mistake. I'm sorry, I don't want to put words in God's mouth, but bring atonement for me. Bring kapara. The word there is kapara, like Yom Kippur. Bring atonement for me. Why? Because I diminished the moon. Meaning God is taking responsibility. And this is what Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish says, Reish Lakish. What is different, what is unique about the goat offering of Rosh Chodesh? That it is stated with regard to it for the Lord. It says that the goat offering, the sin offering of Rosh Chodesh, is not for us, but it's for Hashem, La Hashem, for God. The Holy One, blessed be He, said, this goat of Rosh Chodesh, which is on the new moon, shall be atonement for me for having diminished the size of the moon. So God says, what's the carbon? What's the offering, the special offering of Rosh Chodesh? There's a sin offering. And who's it for? Not for the people, but for me. I want the Jewish people to bring a sin offering for me. What sin offering does God need? For having diminished the moon, God needs kapara. And that's God himself saying, bring atonement for me on Rosh Chodesh, which is the new moon. Now, I don't know if you're like me, but to me, this story doesn't make any sense on multiple levels. And not just because we're dealing with talking moons and moon grievances and lunar eclipses in the sense that the moon is eclipsed by the sun's light. There are many fundamental questions that come up in the story that the commentaries ask. Now, just take a half a step back. You could chalk it up to, Talmudic stories. I got it. All right, whatever. Like, read it, smile, and move on. Like, don't take it so seriously. It's the Agadah. Right? The rabbis spend page after page with, fierce analytical, back and forth. They need to let a little steam off. So they had this midrashic Agadah teaching about a talking moon, and it's cute. It explains why. It's like a bit of a, what do they call it? Like a legend, maybe not a legend, whatever. It's like, how did the moon become small? Because it spoke up, and because this and that, and that's why we bring a sin offering on Rosh Chodesh, and fine. But that's not how we learn Torah. We don't learn Torah thinking that these are Baba Mises or that these are, somehow, fairy tales that were inserted to kind of keep things interesting, but rather that every word of Torah, every word of the Talmud is precise. And these are some of the greatest rabbis. You have Rosh Shimon ben Pazi, you have Reish Lakish. These are some of the greatest Tanaim and Amoraim, the greatest Talmudic scholars of all time, the greatest Jewish scholars of all time. And this is not just a story. And so the commentaries explain the deeper meaning behind it. There are many ways to explain this story, many different insights, just like in all of Torah, there are 70 facets, at least 70 facets of Torah, Shivim Panim LaTorah. But today I want to share a Kabbalistic insight. But in order to get to Kabbalistic insight, let me ask a few questions. Question number one. What was the moon complaining about? In the beginning of the story, God said, I'll create two great luminaries, the sun and the moon. And the moon says, raises his hand, yes, moon. I don't think two kings should share the same crown. Enjoy the crown, bro. Like, what's the problem? Enjoy the fact that you're a great luminary. Why are you getting all uptight? What's the moon's issue? I don't like that he's also a king in the sky. Seriously. What's with the moon? Second of all, why does God respond by telling the moon to make itself smaller? What's up with that? What's up with that reprisal? Yeah.
I mean, I might add another question, and it's not like, why did God have to create two luminaries? I mean, couldn't he create one luminary that will illuminate strongest today and illuminate lighter at night?
Excellent. Like a dimmer.
Yeah. I mean, if that's the purpose of the moon, to be at night and the thing to
Excellent.
be today.
Excellent. Good. Why two luminaries in the first place?
I want you to finish your question.
Yeah.
But I was going to add some science behind how the moon was created.
Oh, well, hold on one second. Let's ask some more questions. So number one, what's the deal with the two great luminaries? You asked, why even two? What's the moon complaining about? What is God's response? Make yourself smaller. What does that mean? What's up with the reprisal? And then when the moon says, hey, that's not fair, and God says, well, how about this, how about that, how about the other, to try to make you feel happier, and then God ultimately says, bring atonement for me. It seems like God is acknowledging that maybe it wasn't the best move to make the moon smaller. Why couldn't God do an undo? Just hit the undo button a few times. All right, moon is back to the original position. It's not like God can revert the change and all is happily ever after. So what's going on? Why does God keep, if he considers it to be, again, I don't want to put words into the Talmud's mouth. It doesn't say that it was a mistake, but the implication when God says, all right, fine, my bad, bring an atonement for me. Well, then why doesn't God just undo that and go back to the way it was in the beginning? What's going on? And these are just some of the questions that come up in this context, in the context of the story. And when you read this story, again, you could read it simplistically and say, well, right, whatever, it's an Agadah, it's Agadah, it's the stories of the Talmud, it's a Midrash, it's whatever you want to call it. It's not meant to be taken so literally and so seriously. It's telling us about the legend, about how the moon got small. Fine, just move on. But that's not how we study Torah. That's not how we study. Nice.
So what I was about to say is, the Russian scientists they concluded the moon was created by, I'll read it to you from, it's not me that's talking. Earth's moon formed about 4.5 billion years ago from a massive collision. A protoplanet about the size of Mars, named Thela, smashed into the young Earth. This violent impact blasted a vast cloud of molten rock and debris into space, which gravity pulled together to form the moon. Scientists call this idea the giant impact hypothesis. But I just want to say that the moon reflects the sunlight the sunlight.
Right.
And when it gets dark, sometimes you can see the moon during the day.
Yeah.
In the sky. The other issue is we have plants on the earth that only grow under the light of the moon, like tomatoes. They're called nightshades. So there's certain I think Hashem did this on purpose, because without the moon, we would have violent storms on earth. The seas would not be regulated.
Yeah. The moon does a lot of things. Yeah, very good point.
A tremendous function.
The Torah in Devarim, in Deuteronomy, speaks mimega tevuat shamesh umerger shirachim. It talks about the things that grow from the shemesh, from the sun, and the things that grow from the moon. So even in Torah, it talks about that. The idea that it actually has a lot of impact. So what I want to do today, what were we going to say?
I'm going to say so Hashem is vindicated.
Well, hold on one second. Hold on. It all works out in the end. But I want to talk about the process and what the process can teach us, because it's very important. So here's what, yes?
Before you go to that, I'm having a problem with what Rabbi Shimon says.
Yes.
Okay, Genesis says, the greater light to rule the day and the lesser light to rule the night, or indicated that only one was great.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it depends on your definition of great. If the greater light means the brighter light to rule the day and the lesser light to rule the night, they could, like dimmer, they could still both be great. So why does he say indicating that only one was great? It could be important or it could be bigger.
I'm with you. I think it's more of a linguistic question. Excellent question. I think it's more of a linguistic question that he's trying to grapple with. Literally, the Torah says, Shnei Ma'orot, or Shtei Ma'orot, whatever it is, Hagdolot, or Hagdolim. Two great, and then it says, Etamar Hagadol, Vatamar Katan. So the question is the verse doesn't flow normally.
They're both great, but one is more light than the other.
Okay, so fine. You could say that. I hear you. You could argue that. But Rabbi Shimon Pazi is saying this opens up a narrative. This opens up a narrative.
I may be able to help your question. Hashem said, El Shaddai, my grace is sufficient. So when we're looking at Hashem has reasons for the moon and for the sun, but whether one is lesser or greater, Hashem says, my grace means time, is sufficient. So when we try to figure out things in esoteric setting, we can get lost in the esoteric.
All right, so let's jump in. So let's jump into the Kabbalah, because once we get into the Kabbalah, I think it's going to get we're going to get a whole new angle on this. All right, so here's how the Kabbalah goes. So sun and moon are symbolic. Now, of course, the sun and the moon are the way we know it today, but sun and moon are representative of source and creation. Why do I say that? Because if you look at the sun and the moon, the interplay of the sun and the sun is the source of the light, and the moon is the body that reflects the light, meaning the moon doesn't produce, again, the way it stands now, the moon doesn't produce its own light. It rather reflects a light that is coming from another source. Similar to creator. Creator would be the source, right? Creator, the source. And then creation is reflecting the light of the creator. So what does it mean in the beginning? The beginning of the verse, that there were two great luminaries. Here's what it means. Initially, God thought to create the world or create creation in such a way that it would perfectly reflect God's light. Again, we're taking this from the literal, we're stripping it away from the literal sun and moon and whatever into a more esoteric or more representative understanding, where sun equals God and moon equals creation. And in the beginning, God's first approach is to say, look, we're going to create two great luminaries, meaning even creation will be perfectly reflective of God's light. So, which means that all of creation will know where it comes from. It will not be opaque. It will not be clouded. It will not be hidden. It will not be obscured. It will be clear, rather, who and what the Creator is and where it comes from. Imagine a being that is entirely with the awareness of where it comes from. I don't view myself as me with an ego. I view myself as completely a creature, a creation of God, and I perfectly reflect my Creator, so that when something else looks at me, they don't see me, they see my Creator. Imagine, to give a parallel, it's not going to be a good example or a perfect example, but imagine this example where an artist, I have a good example, I think. It's not a perfect example, but it's a decent example. But I forgot the designer's name. It's a designer that creates like home goods, and there's a pattern, like a checker box pattern. Does anybody know what I'm talking about? It's like typically black and white.
Mackenzie Child?
Yes! Mackenzie's.
Mackenzie Child.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. So, what would you call it? Mackenzie. Mackenzie. So it's a Mackenzie. So how do I know about Mackenzie? I don't know. I've been Mackenzied. I've had people bring over Mackenzie stuff and like as a gift or whatever. So we got a few Mackenzie things. You walk into some. It's also taken off in the kind of the Jewish world, the frum world. It's like, it's a Mackenzie. So now some people are like all Mackenzied out, which means like everything's Mackenzie. So everything's like it looks like a chessboard basically. That's kind of the style, and it's very popular. I think. I don't know if it's very popular. It's popular and whatever. When you look at it, you don't see a bowl, like it's a Mackenzie. You don't see a pitcher, it's a Mackenzie. You don't see a serving tray, it's a Mackenzie. You see the artist, you see the designer. In other words, it's such a signature. The signature is so strong that you don't see the thing only. You don't just see the thing and what it is, you see what it represents. The artist, the designer, the creator. So God initially, in the initial thought of creation, God is thinking, well, let me create a reality that is perfectly aware of and perfectly reflective of my reality. So creation will know me, will know where it comes from, will recognize that it's not real existence, that its existence is only predicated on the fact that I exist and made it to be. And therefore, its entire reality will bespeak not itself, but me. So that when you look at any part of creation, you're going to see the sun, you won't see the moon. To which the moon says, so then why am I here? If I'm just perfectly reflective of you, so then why do you need me? Just keep you. It's like, why are you cloning yourself? Like what? You're creating a creation that perfectly reflects the Creator, to which point we might ask, well then what's the purpose of that? That serves no purpose. If it automatically bespeaks the Creator, then it's just like Creator, oh, and Creator. It's like, so why do you need two kings sharing the same crown? It's the same truth. What's the implication? The implication is, create me as an other, as a self-identifying reality. Give me independence. Don't create me to be a clone of you, then why do I exist? What do you need a clone for? Create me with some independence. Give me some otherness. So God says, great, diminish yourself. What is diminish yourself? In the language of Kabbalah, not the language of the Talmud, in the language of Kabbalah, it's a term that I think many will find familiar, tzimtzum. What is tzimtzum?
Retraction.
Retraction or contraction. It's where God says, okay, so you don't want to be a perfect reflection of my brightness? Great. Now you'll be smaller. Make yourself smaller. Meaning, now you're no longer going to perfectly reflect my light. You're no longer going to perfectly reflect my truth. You're suddenly going to feel yourself as I and not as me, God, with a capital M. You'll feel yourself as ich, as they say in Yiddish, I, ego, and not God. You know what ego stands for? Edging God out. Yeah.
How many questions?
We're just getting started with this.
So until the fourth day, basically, God was planning to create a world that didn't have free choice. Because if everybody knows where they're coming from, free choice is gone. You know you connected to
Correct.
the Lord.
So once I pause for a second. The way I understand it, and I might be incorrect, is that the timeline of this narrative, as Kabbalah understands it, is not mapped onto day 4, but the narrative of day 4 is reflective of what happened behind the scenes, maybe at the beginning. You with me on this? But it's only written out in day 4 when we read about the sun and the moon. It doesn't necessarily have to mean that it happens in the middle of that verse on day 4, that it switches from no free choice, and you are correct about that, into free choice. Perfection, robotic perfection into, self-aware imperfection. It doesn't necessarily mean that it segues on day 4. It's written about on day 4. I was actually thinking about your very question. I don't think that that's what it means. I really think that it means that this is a report of what happened kind of behind the scenes at the beginning.
So even if we take out the fourth day part of that, then God needed the moon to tell him about free choice? Seriously? And then where's the sun in this conversation? Like the sun is like, oh, I'm cool with this. I'm like fine with not having free choice and
Right.
just reflecting God's.
No. The sun would be God in this understanding. You with me? The sun is symbolic of God. The sun is the source. In this context, it's symbolic of God.
So when we're talking about the creation of the two Me'ot Gdolim, we're not really talking about the creation of the sun of the moon. We're just talking about
Yes.
the creation of the world.
Correct. That's exactly what it is. Kabbalah takes this story and kind of goes, way more abstract and less locked into the actual sun-moon narrative, but more the symbolism of it. What is the sun? The sun is representative of the Creator, God. So yes, in the story, God creates the sun. In this understanding, God is symbolized by the sun. A little bit different. And the moon is not just the moon. The moon is symbolic of, hey, good to see you. Welcome. It's symbolic of you and I. And so initially, and it doesn't mean necessarily that the moon is the one that has to teach God how best to run the world, but it's almost like a hava amina and a maskana, as in Talmudic terms. It's almost like an original thought, and then actually, here's what it makes sense. So God's initial thought is, okay, I want to create, but we'll create in a perfect way. Creatures that are perfectly attuned to me, reflective of me, aware of me, and not so reflective or attuned to themselves. It's to be the perfect creation. Just to take a half a step to the side, there are creations that are sort of like this. Angels. God creates beings that are completely aware of the fact that God is the only truth and that they're really nothing. And the whole day they're saying kadosh, 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 and exploding, in a fiery blaze. We say it before the Shema every day. The Srafim, they burn themselves out of existence because they're so they can't take it because they know the truth. And so imagine even that on a higher level of consciousness. Imagine even a higher level of awareness where the creation doesn't even have any self-awareness. See, angels have some self-awareness, but they're aware that they're not the truth, and therefore they strive for the truth and yearn for the truth. Fine. But imagine not having any self-awareness, and your only awareness is source awareness. That's the only awareness you have. And so God's initial thought of creation is, let's create that. To which the pushback is, and again, does it come from outside? Does it come from a voice inside that's being called the moon voice? Again, I don't know. But the pushback is, well, then what's the point of that type of creation? If you're just essentially cloning yourself, mapping yourself onto something so-called else, then there's nothing else that exists. So you created something else, but it's not really an else. So then what were you doing? You just wasted your time. It's like, I'm going to create something that totally knows me and reflects my light and reflects my truth, and so then what did you gain? Dr. Max, you want to jump in?
Thank you.
Sure.
Now, my question is, this not also be the Kabbalah of free will? So in other
Yes.
words, is free will not the fact that I can choose to recognize myself as, in
Yes.
your example, the moon,
Yes.
and I'm separate from Source, and I have my own thoughts, and I'm telling Source what they did that I didn't like, and so it sounds like the Kabbalah of free will.
Yes. Yes. This is the origin of free will. And I hear what you're saying, that it's almost like in this initial conversation, the moon figure is asserting its free will to say, I need to have free will. And it's kind of like that voice, and that maybe that's the projected voice of creation saying, wait a second, if there's to be any value of me existing in addition to you, it must be filled with free choice. Otherwise, if I don't have a voice, then why did you create me? I have to have my own voice. And so the moon says, I need to exist as a self-identifying, driven ability to choose. And so God says, great, I like that idea. Let's create a reality in which there is free choice. And that reality is going to be marked by a diminishment of the light. Meaning, as opposed to perfectly reflecting the light, now it's not going to be so perfect. It's going to reflect some of the light, some of the time. Right?
So the concept of Simpson.
Exactly. So this is the origin of Tzimtzum. This is the origin. Imagine if God were not to have Tzimtzum, which means that God, so there's God, and then there's God's light, and it's fully manifest, projecting God's truth. Great. But now you just have God and God's projection. So what'd you gain? I mean, like, it's just more God. It's like, what was it? All news all the time, all God all the time. Like, what did you gain? So tzimtzum means, I'm going to create something that's so much an other, right? That it's so other that it's not even going to be aware of where it came from half the time. I'm being generous to say half the time. Most of the time, what are we thinking about? Self. And that's what, so you want self, you want identity, you want your own space? Great, you got it. Tzimtzum, you got it. Now, hold on one second. What happens next? Again, this is a Kabbalistic treatment of this Talmudic story that kind of transcends a little bit of the timeline. In the very next scene, what do you see? You see Adam and Eve eating from the forbidden fruit. And at this moment, you know what the moon voice says? Maybe we went too far. Oops. I thought that free choice would be cool to assert identity and have a role. But what happens when that same free choice goes rogue? Because, hey, what do they say? Be careful what you ask for. You might just get it, right? Oh, you wanted self? Oh, you didn't want to be perfect? I mean, you wanted like your own. It's almost like, imagine. Here's another example. This is a good example, I think. It's a completely different framing. Imagine a parent who loves their child dearly, And because of that love, decides that they want their child to do excellently in school. And because of that, when the child has a science report or a project, will do the project for the child to make it perfect. And at some point, the child says, I want to be a moon. I don't want your light shining on me and overwhelming me. I want to have my own thing. And so the parent says, okay, diminish the light, meaning, okay, I'll take a step back. But then what happens when the kid does the project and now fails? And the child says, actually, you know what? This whole independence thing is overrated. If you don't mind, I got another project coming up. Do you want to just do it for me? Overnight while I sleep? Work till 4 a.m. while I'm sleeping and make sure all the things are perfect? And you know what the parent says at that point? Nope. Too late. Because you raised a good point. Because you need that independence. Because it's healthy for you to be independent. It's healthy for you to struggle and to work on it. And no, you're not always going to get it right. But you know what? That actually beats the alternative. Now, did it take the moon to illuminate the eyes of the Creator, to illuminate God's eyes? Would God not have figured it out? I don't think that Kabbalah is so, is actually taking it to that point to say that it's creation that schools God into understanding the value of free choice. I just think it's the way the construct of the story to kind of frame it, the way that Kabbalah understands the Talmudic story is that it's just a convenient framing, which means that it's about God initially wanting perfection, wanting the best. And the moon voice, before it has a voice, saying, I'm not going to have a voice if I don't have a voice. So give me a voice. And God says, now you have a voice. And then, because you have a voice and free choice, the next thing you know is, now you have Chet Tzadas. Now you have the sin. Take a look at the next side. I'm going to continue in this handout. Take a look at the very next citation. Oh, thank you very much. All right. Origins, the opening of sin. Take a look at this from the previous Rebbe. He writes in one of his discourses, the sin of the tree of knowledge was caused by the diminishment of the moon. The sin of the tree of knowledge? Ma kesher. If you read that open line simply, what's the connection? The moon got small, so people sinned, but with Kabbalah, the whole thing makes sense. That is the lack of godly light. It is this lack that allows for the possibility of sin in this world. For if God's light was revealed, in other words, if there was no tzimtzum, no free choice, sin would be an impossibility. If there's no tzimtzum, so diminishment of the light equals tzimtzum. The diminishment of the moon's light becoming dimmer, is synonymous with the concept of tzimtzum. What is tzimtzum? Tzimtzum is divine light being constricted, which is a fancy way of saying, God says, let me hide a little bit, let me retract a little bit, and give you space to operate. In that space, you're going to feel yourself, you're going to know yourself, you're going to be aware of yourself, you're going to be less aware of me, more aware of you. You will feel like doing what you want to do, and therefore you can assert your own will, and that is free choice. Now you can also assert, and even when I tell you, hey, don't eat from that tree, you might say, yeah, but it looks good, so I'm going to do it anyway. That's only possible with the diminishment of the moon, i.e. with the concealment and the retraction of divine light, which is the idea of tzimtzum. So again, Kabbalah takes these agadic, these midrashic narratives, and weaves together what I believe to be a very tight narrative that explains literally the foundations of our reality. You and I inhabit a world which seems independent, which seems fiercely independent, which seems disconnected from its source, which a person can live a full life of 120 years and never be cognizant of there being a creator who intentionally created this reality, who could live a life completely under the impression that all of this just happened to be, or just came into existence, or just, fell off a Big Bang tree. However that works, right? That just happened. And so what this is telling us is that's not by accident, it's by design. Yes, there was a maybe prototype, idea. There was, as God was workshopping this whole creation thing, God's like, well, maybe we'll create a world in which there's clarity on truth, and everyone is known, and it's all obvious what the truth is, and my light is shining perfectly everywhere. And then creation kind of feebly raises its hand and says, so then what do you need me for? And so God says, okay, let me give you a role. And your role is going to be, you're independent. But with independence comes risk and vulnerability. That's how it works with kids. You want to give them independence? Great. So you want your kid to walk, right? We talked about walking this morning. Oh, I want my kid to walk because I have to pick them up all the time. I want them to have independence. Okay, be careful what you ask for, because the moment they can walk, by the way, I'm pro walking, just so you know, I'm pro that. But the moment they have independence, they're climbing out of the crib, they're getting up, they're coming to your bed, they're waking you up. Great. It just comes with the territory. You tell them to go this way, they go that way. Now you're chasing after them, which is a blessing and a beautiful thing. But you've now lost control to some measure. God, the initial thought is to create something that you are perfectly in control of, that doesn't have its own consciousness, its own volition, i.e. will. The second thought is, I'll diminish the moon. And diminishing the moon will create the possibility of free choice, and therefore grant purpose, and real meaning to the act of creation. Now, let's continue. So the moon says, great, I got what I wanted. And then the sin happens. Meaning the concept of sin is born out. And then the moon says, I may have messed up here. Maybe this independence thing is not all it's cracked up to be. Hey, let's go back. Let's go back to the way things were. You know what? I'll give up my independence, my free will, for perfection. I'd rather get 100 on the science fair, the science project, than get a 50 because I wanted to do it myself. I actually would rather you do it than me do it. And God says, you know what? Too latesies. We're not going back. We're not going back. This is it. This is reality. And it's not a punishment. It just makes sense. It makes sense. The claim is correct. It makes sense. If there is an other, let it be an other. Right? If you're granting otherness, make it independent otherness. Make it self-aware otherness. Don't make it godly-centric otherness. And therefore, and you know what the truth is? The truth is that a relationship is only valuable when you have that otherness. If you create the perfect robot to love you, is that love? I don't know. It's the appearance of love, but it's not actually love because you know that you programmed it to love you. So, example that I've given before is, imagine you program something, and you can probably do it with Claude or something, or ChatGPT or Codex, whatever it is. Program something to send you a text message every morning at 9 a.m. saying, love you. And then you get that text message at 9 a.m. Does it feel satisfying? Are you touched every time you get that message that you programmed to send to yourself? It's not touching. You know what is touching? When someone who has their own free choice, their own life, their own stuff going on, stops their day and reaches out to you to let you know that they love you. That's meaningful. So God says, I'm not going to give up this meaningful, this very fraught and complicated and really complicated relationship with creation that sometimes gets it right. I'm not going to give up those moments for, an automaton. I love you, God, because you told me to. Right? That's not a relationship. That's not satisfying. That doesn't feel like anything. That doesn't do anything. And therefore, God says, no backsies. We're not going back. This is the way it's going to be. You are going to be diminished. That doesn't mean that you can't reflect the light, but that means now you have to choose to reflect the light. And in that choice, like the moon, it waxes and wanes. Sometimes we're more reflective of the light, sometimes we're less. And no, I'm not suggesting that the moon decides every month when it's going to wax and when it's going to wane and when it's going to shine more, reflect more light or less light. That's not a choice. That's inherent in the moon. But what we can, again, symbolically learn from the moon is that there are ups and downs in our relationship with God. And some days we feel more connected. When I say more connected, we feel more reflective. We feel more like purposeful. We have a greater sense that God is the truth and my life needs to be reflective of that. And I do have a mission and I should live up to that calling and standard and relationship and belief. And sometimes I feel disconnected and sometimes I feel myself more and I feel my ego more and I feel like I don't really care that God says, don't eat from that tree. I'm hungry and that tree is here and I'm going to eat from that tree. And sometimes I'll shine less of God's light. But God says, I'm not going to trade that for anything in the world. But what I do want you to do is one thing. Make sure every Rosh Chodesh to bring an atonement offering on my behalf. Huh? Let's take a look at how the Maharal of Prague explains it. Let's go back inside. Take a look-see. Take a look-see at the text, God's atonement. Many are bewildered by God's statement, says the Maharal in his Chiddushei Agadot, in his insights on the stories of Talmud. It says, many are bewildered by God's statement, bring atonement, kapara for me. They're puzzled because the Hebrew word kapara is ordinarily used when speaking of one who sins and then offers a sacrifice as atonement for the sin. This cannot apply to God, who cannot possibly sin. So, meaning how can you understand? God says, bring kapara, bring atonement for me. God sinned? He says, take it easy. They are mistaken, however, because kapara is a generic term that means removal and can be used in any context, not only the removal of sin. Listen to this. Bring kapara for me is God's request of us that we remove the complaint that the moon lodged against him. Listen to this. It doesn't mean that God whoopsed or oopsed or goofed or messed up and we need to fix it with a goat on Rosh Chodesh. That's not at all what this means. Kapara is not atonement for sin, it's removal of a problem. So God says, I created a problem intentionally. The problem is tzimtzum. The problem is free choice. Now that could be a problem. But you can fix the problem. You know how you can fix the problem? By making the right choice. That's how you fix the problem. What's the problem? The problem is the gap between creator and creation. That's the problem. Yeah, problem is the lack of light. So you know what the solution is? Bring more light. Create more light. Make more good choices. Get yourself in more alignment with God. And what better day to do that and to recommit to that than on Rosh Chodesh, the first day of the Jewish month, when suddenly, after going dark, the moon once again begins to reflect whose light? The light of the sun. God says, here's the problem. We both can acknowledge the problem, right? The world doesn't naturally have awareness of its creator. The world naturally does not always run in humans don't always, move to the rhythm of the divine call. That's the problem. Great. Who can fix it? I'm not going to fix it, because that's going to undo the whole point of creation. You know who the only one that can fix it is? You. How? By stepping up, by reflecting me. And so then, what does that do with the offering, with the goat, with the carbon? What's the word carbon? What's the word carbon? Karav. What does that mean? Karov. It means close. Drawing close. Karban means to draw close. God says, if the problem is that you're too distant, we got the solution in your pocket. I don't know why I said pocket. The solution's in your hands, in your heart, in your head. You know what the solution is? Come back. Get closer. That's it. The problem is the tzimtzum. The solution is you choose to opt in, to text God, I love you. Who has that choice? I have that choice. So God says, please text me. I'm not going to make you text me, because that would be the sun imposing its light once again. But you can choose to fix it, and that's what I'm asking you to do. Only you can prevent forest fires, and only you can fix the breach of the tzimtzum. Take a look at how the Maharal concludes this. Those who lack a true understanding of Torah misunderstand the concept of a carbon sacrifice. They imagine that a sinner who brings a carbon is offering a gift to God, who then is placated by the gift and grants atonement. Heaven forbid one should say this. Let me pause here for a moment. Who amongst us haven't thought that perhaps? Back in the days of the temple, right? God wants an animal and you bring him an animal. God's like, thank you very much. Well, how can I help you? That's what a sacrifice is, right? God wants animals. You bring him an animal and then he gives you what you want. He says, heaven forbid, chas v'shalom, chas v'chalila, to believe this. Rather, what is a carbon? A carbon entails an individual's drawing near to God. L'karev, to whom the carbon is being offered, as indicated by the name karban, which means drawing near. Because God is perfect and beyond blemish, one who draws near to God is also relieved of all imperfections and blemishes, that is, sins. This is the secret of the carbon. How does the carbon, how does the offering, how does it rehabilitate or how does it cleanse? Because God is perfect and true, and if you draw close to God, then you draw close to perfection, and then you're also touched by perfection, and the sin is ameliorated. The point is, it's not about the goat. It's about getting close, drawing close. It's not about the animal. It's about the internal work. This is why the verse states that on Rosh Chodesh we should bring a sin offering for God. The carbon, as explained, removes the world's imperfections. In this case, the imperfection we are removing is the absence of light that resulted from the diminishment of the moon. And how do we remove that? By drawing closer to the light. If the issue is, so God, again, just to rewind this, and just to draw a very clear narrative. In the beginning, God sought to clone himself in a world, to which the counter argument is, what's the point? So God says, you're right, probably to himself, there is no point. Let me create a world that has its own consciousness, that has its own sense of reality, and therefore will have free choice and will then ponder, do I want to do what the Creator wants or do I want to do what I want? And then what happens when it messes up and it wants to come running back and say, can you fix this for me? I'm going to say no. And you know who the only one that can fix it is? You, creation. So if the problem is that we sinned with the tree of knowledge of good and evil, you know what the solution is? Instead of eating from the forbidden fruit, text God, right? Daven a little bit, do a mitzvah, sound the ram's horn as one does this time of year, right? The issue is disconnection. Great. The power of connection is in your hands. So reconnect. Reconnect, plug back into the light. And then you will be like the moon, reflective of the light of the source. But now it's not because it was imposed on you. It's now because you chose to be the conduit of to be the reflector of God's light. And now it's a meaningful relationship. So God says, I could create a robot that loves me. But then I'm realizing there's no point. So let me create a self-identifying creature that could love me and could also love ice cream. But if it chooses me, wow, that'll be amazing. But then it chooses ice cream. And then it says, well, I don't want to have the choice of choosing ice cream. I want to God rewire me to only want you. And God says, no, I'm not going to do that. You know what I'm going to do though? I'm going to give you opportunities to connect with me. And then you're the only one that can fix it. Instead of running after the ice cream, run after me. And that's it. And that's the narrative. And that's the story of the small moon. The story of the tzimtzum. The story of creation itself. And what I want to take from the story is one simple idea. You know what the cause of all the problems is? Not the moon. The moon speaking up, no. The cause of all of the problems, all of the stress of life, is due to one thing: not being in alignment with truth, with source. Every problem, including death and lack of health, every problem in the world, because God is the source of pure and true life. Every single tzara, all the tzaras that we have in life, one cause: out of alignment with the source. All of the challenges that we have, all of the confusion that we have, all of everything physical, spiritual, it all comes from the same place. Which is why it says, oh, I didn't put it in here. In here. Kiddush Levana, once a month we go outside and howl at the moon, right? Saturday night typically. We go outside and we look at the new moon, or like it's between the 7th and 15th of the month. And we say like a few pages of prayers. And at the end, we say, Yehi Ratzon, may be God's will. That God fix the blemish of the moon and the moon shall shine, meaning may come the day that the moon should once again shine like the sun. You know what that means? That we should get back in alignment, perfectly back in alignment. And then everything will be okay. Life will be good, physically, spiritually we'll be back in alignment. And that's going to be all the healing. And so the point of today, and again, I know I started down this line a second ago, but let me get back to it. The point that I want to bring out today is that all of the issues or the challenges on the ground come from, I would say, not issues, but come from factors that exist above. This is what I like to call the law of spiritual gravity. Everything that exists below exists like that because of conditions above. There was once a college student, and I heard this from the rabbi that brought these college students to the Rebbe in the 1970s, or maybe 60s. He brought a group of college students to meet the Rebbe. Can you imagine? That's quite the honor. And then one of them asked the question, and the rabbi said he wanted to bury himself. He was so embarrassed. What did this guy ask? What did this college kid? He didn't mean it with any. What did he ask the Rebbe? He said, they say about you that you are a miracle worker. Can you do miracles? Imagine asking the Rebbe directly. Who does that? He's like, okay, I don't know these people. They just follow me around, Anyway, so the Rebbe said the following. Everything physical, everything that exists is powered by something above. If you could change something above, if you can somehow tinker with the forces, energies above, then the reality below changes. And then the Rebbe says, through prayer, and I don't remember, I'm paraphrasing now with my memory, I heard this story like 25 years ago, like with prayer, whatever it is, you also can change things above. And that's the power of prayer. Yehi Ratzon. So he didn't answer the question, can he do miracles? But he said, basically, we can all create miracles. But the point of this is the same thing. Everything that exists below, it all stems from realities above. The fact that you and I struggle in life with what's truth and what's reality and free choice and doing what's right versus doing what feels right? That whole tension, it's all born of the same spiritual truth, the tzimtzum, that same spiritual factor. It's the tzimtzum, that withdrawal of God's light, creating what appears to be a vacuum that creates us, and now we feel lost. It all comes from every challenge below, comes from challenges above. Healing below comes through healing above. So we're not going to get to it today, but this is the introduction to the next piece of our mimer, of our discourse, creation redemption, where we're going to talk about what happened at the time of the Exodus. Because what happens at the time of the Exodus is not just 10 plagues and freedom and splitting of the sea and whatever it is. You know what happens at the Exodus and at Sinai? Also that whole time period, what happens then is God's light shines purely and openly. That light of the sun, meaning no tzimtzum light, tzimtzumless light shining forth. And you know what happens when that happens? Then there's clarity on earth. For a moment, in a window of time, there's clarity on what the truth is. And you see God's hand, and you see God's truth. Vayar ha'am, vayaminu ba'Hashem v'Moshe avdo. They saw by the splitting of the sea, and they believed in God and in Moses. And in that moment, in that frame of time, God shone His light without the diminishment of the moon, without the tzimtzum. And when that happens, miracles happen. Truth is obvious, and you don't have free choice anymore. And then you know what happens when that window closes? The moon comes back. And the tzimtzum reappears. And free choice reawakens. And all your clarity and all your epiphanies that you had, they all are now yesterday's news. And now today I might once again chomp on the forbidden fruit. And that's how we explain how just a few days, a few weeks after Revelation at Sinai, the Jews are dancing the hora around the golden calf. How could it be? How could it be? Well, because the moon was diminished. Because there's a tzimtzum. Because you don't always see God. You see yourself, and you see what you want, and you see this and that, and you have your own desires and temptations and things that you want to follow, and passions. And that's all a product of the same condition. The condition above that leads to the condition below. So, with this in mind, we are primed to pick up this text and read back inside next week. So today, in conclusion, we read the story from the Talmud about the diminishment of the moon. And I asked a few very basic questions that seems to position this story as without disrespect, as a Baba Maisa, a legend about how the moon was formed. And you're like, what does that even mean? And we explained that Kabbalah takes it away. It's not about the moon being formed. It's about God creating a reality where there is free choice, where truth is not being imposed on us, and the challenges and opportunities that exist because of that. When you empower your child to own their own grades, you are allowing them to mature. You're giving them the opportunity to step up to the plate. They might strike out at the plate also. They might fail. But when they walk, I don't mean like baseball walk. When they slug a home run, it's their home run, it's not your home run. And that makes it worth it. Does it make it easy? No. Can you imagine God all the time being like, oh, no, don't do that, I can't stop you, but don't do that, oh, you did it. Imagine the whole day, nonstop, billions of people doing foolish things, and God's like, no, please, no, and but God put himself on silent. God silenced himself. God literally censored himself to allow us to figure it out. And when we do it, can you imagine the nachas that he gets? Oh, yes, he got it. I didn't tell him to do it. He got it on his own, or she got it on her own. That's amazing. That joy you can't replicate with a robot. You can't replicate the robot of watching your creation get it right without you. Can you imagine the joy? The chiddush, the novelty, the joy, the excitement that's born of that? Unfathomable. When you watch your kid get it right, they make their own choices, their healthy choices. It's unbelievable. So my blessing for all of us is that we should give God nachas. We want nachas, we should give God nachas. And what that means is that even when we don't have to, and God's not forcing us, and God's voice is not in our ear, but and no one's watching, and no one's looking at privacy of our own homes and whatever it is, we make the right choices that give God the greatest nachas. It's the month of El. It's a time of retrospection. What greater time to commit to plugging in to what God wants, even though we're a moon and we don't have to, and he's not twisting our arm, but to choose to do it. What greater month to resolve that than this? May it be an amazing month of introspection as we kind of wind down the year and kind of march into the new year. We should do it with strength and with conviction and clarity and success. And let us say, Amen. All right, the tradition is that we blow the 10 core blasts of the shofar every day of El, except for Shabbat, and a lead into the new year. So, I want to say that this El has been going for me, shofar so good. And let's jump in. All right, I don't know if it's going to work on Zoom, but here we are. If not, you'll have to figure out on your own. The custom is to please rise while the shofar is sounded. And so I will sound the shofar. This is not my shofar, so that's the caveat. If it doesn't work, blame the instrument. What's that?
Violin?
Yeah, but what's the famous one? Yeah, what is it?
Stradivarius.
Stradivarius is in the shop, so I'm just blowing the simple horn. Here we go. Thanks for having my back. Takes a little figuring out with a new instrument. Hold on, did it come through? Did you guys hear it? No! Unbelievable. It's the shofar bias. It's unbelievable. I have a mic here, this, that. All right. I tried, I think already in the last few years, to try to tweak the settings. I've never gotten it to work. Good. All right. So wherever you are, blow the shofar, find the shofar app, play a YouTube video, something to get you in the spirit. It's not, better in person, but yeah.
So there is a beautiful book I used to read to my children in school, why the sun shines and the moon. It's a midrash. It's from a midrash.
Is it this?
Yes. So this.
Yeah. Shavua Tov.
It's and it explains that also God gave the moon the stars to shine with it.
Ah, yes.
Yeah,
That's missing from here.
Yeah, that's missing.
Yeah. God's like, I'll give you stars. I don't want stars. I want to be big again.
And then it's a midrash story that the child is going to go to school and the Abba is coming.
That's
and
very
the
cute.
Story, why the sun? Because the sun also, they both wanted to shine, and one was more humble. That's what the story is. You don't know which one?
I know. I don't know the book, but I know the story. I mean, that's the story we told today.
That's what.
Yeah.
I was so interested in listening to it. So by the way, my mom gave me the sun and the moon bracelet.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah, years, and Sarita went too. And also when you say the miracle, that is tefillah, teshuva, tzedakah, mavir, netzroah, gezerah.
Yes.
Because Rabbi Rosenbaum told me when my husband was ill, that sometimes when you do things, maybe God will change the decree.
Right. Thank
And that's
you.
what I remember when you said this now.
Yeah, beautiful.
Thank you.
Dr. Maxey, good to see you. Matt, good to see you. We'll be in touch.
For the beautiful class.
Thank you, Mariana. Thank you. Glad that you're here. Sending lots of love from all of us to you. Hope all is well. And we'll see you soon, guys. Shavua Tov, everybody. Take care.